We'll start the session now. Thanks to everyone for waiting. Slightly late to start. Managing logistics for our first hybrid meeting. So, welcome on behalf of IEEE Kolkata section and IEEE Women in Engineering. These are sixth Dare to Dream. Dare to Dream series was initiated by Kolkata section and Women in Engineering in the year 2021, and the talk series is intended to talk of Indian women in STEM who are into STEM careers more than 50 years back, and most of them who are born pre-independence. In 2021, we had 5 events. And this is our sixth episode, and this session is on Dr. Asima Chatterjee. To have her daughter, Dr. Professor Banerje with us today, who will talk about the life and work of Professor Asima Chatterjee. Before we welcome ma'am, I would like to invite our IEEE Kolkata section, Dr. Shushmita Mitra, to tell us something about the session and the session, and then we will start the session. Over to you. It should be. Shushmita ma'am got dropped. There are some connectivity.
Okay. And I am very much grateful that has come regarded all others' life. Section. Okay, on behalf of Kolkata section, we welcome her, and I is you know, IEEE Kolkata section established in the year of 1980s, and it was previously under the election then the independent Kolkata section from 1981, and it has a structural organization. There are several what is called the societies, Comstock, Power, Computer, and various 16 societies, and we affinity group, and also the young professional group. Along the year, the various IEEE activities in terms of seminar and spent through the year. The IEEE Kolkata section on 2022 this year. ABS is a flagship conference. We are organizing 2022 also, and the day of 11 December. Okay, paper submission open, and it is open to 30 days. So the student who entered here, please note this thing. You may submit the paper, and especially the specialty of Calcon event that came for the benefit of the student, local event. So I request the students who are present here to be participated in the Calcon 2022 also in the month of December. So with these few words, I request the we organizing chair Sudeshna to conduct today's main program. Thank you all for coming here.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot.
I have entered again. Yes. So,
Shushmita Di, do you want to share a couple of words?
I apologize that I got disconnected. So I'm very happy that I've been able to be a part of this program today. We have heard of Professor Asima Chatterjee from our childhood. So it is a great honor to be present here on this occasion. So Professor EP has already introduced about the Kolkata section. So let us start the program. Yeah.
Thank you, Shushmita Di. Arnab, have you shared the screen so that others can also see? Okay. Now I would request, we will request, we have covered, so we will go on. We would welcome the speaker now, Dr. Julie Banerje, and Chandrima will it.
It's better to introduce Professor Banerje.
Sorry for the hybrid mode. We are still getting used to a hybrid mode. I hope everybody can see. Welcome to Dr. Abhijit Banerjee. Sir, welcome to the session. Now I would welcome ma'am, our very favorite ma'am, Dr. Shushmita Shurkole, to introduce our today's esteemed speaker. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Sudeshna. Can we see the screen? Can you share the screen?
Yeah, it's not showing up here. That's what I'm wondering. Have you shared the screen or no? It's not coming up. It's not yet coming up in this. Just share it. It's not yet showing up anywhere, not even here.
So the others should also be able to see. Yes, it's
Yes,
coming.
it's coming now.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much. It's a rarest of the rare privilege for me to introduce someone as renowned as Professor Julie Banerjee, and who is also happens to be the daughter of very, very famous Professor Asima Chatterjee. Professor Julie Banerjee, she got her degrees of BSc in chemistry, MSc, as well as PhD from the University of Calcutta, being always her. Um, and then she was with chemistry department in various positions, including being the Kara professor, the head of the department, and deputy program coordinator. She served on University Senate, Faculty Council of Science. She was elected Dean, Faculty of Home Science, and also a member of the Senate. She has a very rich experience in research. It's not sure. Yes.
I think you can turn off this.
Yeah, just around this way. Carrying out postdoctoral research at the University of East Anglia in UK with late Professor Dr. Alan Roy Katritsky, and then visiting faculty in Pennsylvania State University, as well as University of Texas and University, University of Florida, U.S. Department of Agricultural Research in Gainesville, uh, numerous awards and distinctions, like the elected fellow of the West Bengal Academy of Science, awarded the Professor Mehrotra Lifetime Achievement Award in the Indian Science Congress Association, Fellow of Indian Science Congress Association, and of course Indian National Science Academy, then University of Calcutta Griffith Memorial Prize for the best piece of research work in science, Premchand Roychand Scholarship. Next slide, please. She has been associated with the Indian Science and also the Indian Science Congress Association, convener of the Forum of School Children in the 1987 episode of Science Congress, council member, Indian Chemical Society, and very important popularization of science program. She has a wide experience in teaching and research activities for many, many decades. Her interests are in organic chemistry and inorganic chemistry, as well as pharmacology, study of natural products in all aspects, heterocyclic chemistry, and 160 research publications in peer-reviewed journals and other proceedings of national and international, several plenary lectures. Next slide, please.
Yeah.
She has supervised many research scholars. Had research collaboration with scientists in UK, US, institutes. Professor Professor Banerje were PhD students of Asima Chatterjee as well. So with these words, and these are too few to describe the long journey and their contributions, Mr. Banerje to enlighten us on Mr. Asima Chatterjee, who's really a role model for all of us. Mr. Banerjee,
Thank you very
please.
much. Introduction.
Okay, Arnab just shared the other PPT on the ma'am's presentation. He will share. I will just. We will now welcome ma'am to start her talk, and we are just sharing the slides in the conference room. So just bear with us for a couple of minutes, and we will start soon.
Good evening, Biola.
আমি তো যেতামই তোমাদের কাছে প্রণাম করতে বলে তো দেবো না এবার তুমি তোমার বোনকে বলো কি বলার আসতে কি বলছে কি বলবে কথা কৃষ্ণ মল্লিকা
Honorable members on the dais and off the dais, my young students, ladies and gentlemen, and those online, I deem it a great honor for having been invited here today to speak on the life, research activities, and social commitments of our revered teacher, late Professor Dr. Asima Chatterjee. Next slide. Professor Dr. Asima Chatterjee was born on 23rd September 1917, and she passed away on 22nd November 2006. I have chosen this slide particularly because here she is addressing a joint
Go back to the previous slide.
She is addressing the joint session of Parliament while being a nominated member of Rajya Sabha. She, as a former member a former professor, Guru Prasad Singh, professor of chemistry, Calcutta University, is addressing the joint session of Parliament on the birth centenary celebration of another former professor of Calcutta University, namely the King George V, professor of philosophy, and the person is no other than Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan. So we have one professor addressing the birth centenary of another professor. Next slide. In 2017, Google paid a tribute to her on her birth anniversary, 23rd September, by offering her a doodle. The face signifies Professor Chatterjee, the green leaves natural product chemistry, and the cyclohexane rings organic chemistry. Next slide. While searching the net to prepare this lecture for today, my husband and I found that the Indian Post and Telegraphs had issued a stamp in her honor in November 2011, and this is that very stamp. Thank you. Next slide. The central government created 11 chairs in the name of Indian women scientists on February 2020. And on the left, you'll find the Government of India notification for the creation of these 11 chairs. And this is the news item from Anandabaja Potrika. And on the right, you'll find the article mentioned in the Telugu journal Saksi. Next slide, please. Next slide. Asima Chatterjee was the elder of 2 children of Dr. Indunarayan Mukherjee, who was a medical doctor by profession, having passed from Calcutta Medical College, and Srimoti Kamala Devi. You could just imagine more than 105 years ago, this couple decided to give equal opportunities to their firstborn child, a girl by the name of Asima, as they did to their son Sharashi Ranjan, born 2 years later. They never ever made any distinction between them. Ashima's younger brother, Professor Sharashi Ranjan Mukherjee, was a reputed physician, and he did his PhD from the University of Edinburgh on nuclear medicine. He was the founder, director of the Department of Nuclear Medicine, Postgraduate Institute of Medical Education and Research, Seth Suklal Karnani Memorial Hospital, and retired as director of the same hospital. He received the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Memorial Award in Medicine in 1968. In 1945, Dr. Asima Mukherjee married Dr. Baradananda Chatterjee, a well-known physical chemist who was an authority on soil science and corrosion. He was a former head of the Department of Chemistry and Geology, Bengal Engineering College, and vice principal academic. He was also a member of the Railway Board on Corrosion. This Bengal Engineering College today is a central institute known as the Indian Institute of Engineering Sciences and Technology. Her only child and son-in-law, Professor Abhijit Banerje, were professors and former heads of the Department of Chemistry, Calcutta University. In addition, Professor Abhijit Banerje was also Program Coordinator, UGC Center of Advanced Studies on Natural Products, including in 2003 till his retirement in 2011. Only University and not under St. Xavier's University. Her granddaughter-in-law, assistant professor, Department of Economics. Asima passed her matriculation examination, which was then held under Calcutta University from Bethune Collegiate School, and her intermediate science from Bethune College. She won a couple of scholarships and medals. She graduated with honors in chemistry from Scottish Church College. This was the only college at that time where lady students could study chemistry honors thanks to the vision of the Church of Scotland. Presidency College opened its doors to lady students for studying chemistry honors in 1940 College and Bethune College much later in the 1950s. But here, while taking admission to Scottish Church College, Asima Chatterjee met with an obstacle. As she came from a joint Orthodox Hindu family, the elders were reluctant to allow her to study in a co-education college and preferred that she study botany honors at Bethune College. It was the sheer determination and courage of her mother which enabled her to study chemistry honors. Apart from formal education, young Asima learned Sanskrit. Next slide.
Yes, this is
Apart, Meghdut, Mudra Rakush, and other ancient scripts of our country. And I gathered this from an article which she wrote in Anandabaja Potrika. She had studied music for a long time, and in 1930, young Asima sang in the felicitation function which was held at the University Institute Hall to honor Sir C.V. Raman for being awarded the Nobel Prize. And this, my husband and I got from the internet while preparing this today's lecture. In 1930, she obtained her Master of Science degree in chemistry and stood second. Was published in the Journal of the Indian Chemical Society on the work she had carried out in her MSc project thesis under Dr. P.K. Bose. It is here that the Indian Chemical Society was established at the initiative of Acharya Prafula Chandra Ray in 1924 with the aim to safeguard and give priority to Indian chemists and to publish an Indian journal which would do justice and give credit for the publication of their original research work, because he found that at that time many of the original and good research work were being rejected by the Journal of the Chemical Society, London, and that very work was published within a few months in that very same journal by British workers. So he wanted to protect the Indian chemists all over India. Science of 1990, working with P.K. Bose. She was the first scientist to receive DSc university, and that too in undivided time. For the award of the DSc degree, 3 copies of the had to be sent to London, were examined by fellows of the Royal Society. In case of Asima Chatterjee, examiner Professor Sir Alexander Thomas, FRS Nobel laureate, and 2 very famous organic chemists, Professor R.D. Howard and Professor G.R. Clemmo. At that time, he then Vice Chancellor of Calcutta University, late Dr. Shyam Mukherjee, the Doctor of Philosophy degree in both science and arts, while the higher degree in arts remained DLiT and in science, BSc. In 1940, at the young age of 23, even before she submitted her thesis for DSc degree, she joined Lady Brabourne College as a founder head of the Department of Chemistry and introduced the ISc Intermediate Science course. I think you can see the laboratory which was constructed during her headship, and we found when we went there that even today the BSc honors students are carrying out their practical classes. She continued her tenure at Lady Brabourne College till 1954, and during this period, the BSc honors course in chemistry was introduced. Postdoctoral experience. When their daughter was only 15 days old, her husband, Dr. Baradananda Chatterjee, left on a postdoctoral fellowship to the United States of America, and while Dr. Asima Chatterjee was there, he returned back to India and later joined Bengal
Engineering College. So when Dr. Asima Chatterjee received a postdoctoral fellowship, she decided as a mother she would never leave her infant daughter behind. So she was looking for a lady governess to look after her daughter because she knew she would have to spend long hours in the university laboratory. So in June 1947, she set sail from Colombo because ship was then the common mode of travel with her 11-month-old daughter and the lady governess who did not know any English. She worked first in the Department of Chemistry with the University of Wisconsin with Professor L.M. Parks on naturally occurring glycosides. She then moved to the famous California Institute of Technology, which is one of the top universities of the world and is known as Caltech. There she worked with the famous organic chemist, Professor Laszlo Zekmeister, on carotenoids and provitamin A. And for this work, she was awarded the coveted Watermole Fellowship. During her stay at Caltech, she met Professor Lyman Pauling laureate and made it a point to attend his freshman classes. And there grew a very affectionate bond between the teacher and the student. She then went to Switzerland with her daughter and the lady governess and worked in the Department of Zurich, Chemistry, University of Zurich, with Professor Paul Kara Nobel laureate on biologically active indole alkaloids, which became her lifelong interest. Next slide, please. Next slide. Tap for it.
It has come. It will take a little time.
This one there. There you can see Dr. Asima Chatterjee, teacher, Professor Paul Kara Nobel laureate. And there is her teacher, Professor Laszlo Zekmeister, in his laboratory where Dr. Asima Chatterjee worked. When Professor Linus Pauling came to Calcutta in the early 1967, he made it a point to visit Professor Chatterjee in her laboratory in the University College of Science and Technology. Dr. Asima for 480 grant for research. Professor Linus Pauling helped her, and the correspondence between them is today preserved in the Linus Pauling Museum at the University of Oregon. Next slide. Here you find her in her room at the University College of Science, 92 Acharya PC Road. It's not very clear, but here's a bust behind her made of bronze, which was of Shami Vivekananda, which was gifted to her on her 60th birthday by her students and admirers. This is a picture of her with her grandson. He used to come over from Presidency College, where he was studying zoology honors. Dr. Asima Mukherjee was appointed lecturer at the chemistry department in 1944. She was appointed reader in 1954, and here she got her first taste of what it was to work in a male-dominated department. She was the first lady teacher in this department since the inception of the department from the time of Sir Ashutosh Mukherjee. The appointment always had to be ratified in the Calcutta University Senate. And during ratification, the then head of the department felt that although Dr. Asima Chatterjee was the best candidate, he would prefer a male teacher because he felt a lady would not be up to the mark. However, he was overruled and the appointment was made, and Dr. Asima Chatterjee joined in 1954. And it was a long journey for her till 1968, when the next two lady teachers joined the department. She was the head of the department for a long time, and under her leadership, the department reached new dimensions in research and teaching. And of the UGC Special Program of Natural Studies of Natural Products. She was also honorary coordinator of the UNESCO UNDP Assistance Program, which was given to selected departments, and Calcutta University Organic Chemistry Department was the first organic chemistry department in India to receive this award. All her prizes and honors she received, I should like to mention the Mott Gold Medal, which is one of the prestigious medals of Calcutta University. She was elected Fellow of the National Institute of Sciences of India, which is now known as the Indian National Science Academy. She received the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Memorial Award of the Council of Scientific and Industrial Government of India, which is the highest award given in our country for pure and allied sciences, including medicine. Dr. Asima Chatterjee and her brother, Dr. Sharishu Ranjan Mukherjee, to my knowledge, are the only example of two siblings receiving this coveted award. She was honored with Sir P.C. Ray Award of the Indian Chemical Society. Next slide, please. Here you find Dr. Asima Chatterjee, who was not even a professor at that time, receiving the Bhatnagar Award from Honorable M.C. Chagla, Minister of Education, CSI, Director, can be seen in the background. Selected President of the Indian Science Congress Association, the 62nd session being held in the Delhi University in 1975. She was the first woman general president of the Indian Science Congress. She was honored with Padma Bhushan by the government of India in 1975 and delivered the 40th Acharya Jagadish Chandra Bose Memorial Lecture at Bose Institute. Next slide, please. She was nominated by the President of India as a member of Parliament, Rajya Sabha, as a scientist academician. You might wonder at the broken term 82 to 84. This was because the famous poet from Banaras Hindu University had passed away and the seat became vacant, and the then Prime Minister of India, late Mrs. Indira Gandhi, was looking for a lady scientist academician. Before her, there were lady artists, there were lady cinema stars, lady authors, lady poets, but there was never lady scientist to be a nominated member of the Rajya Sabha. Next slide, please. She was awarded Sir Ashutosh Mukherjee Gold Medal of the Indian Science Congress and the G.P. Chatterjee Lecturership, again of the Indian Science Congress. Next slide. Awarded the Silver Jubilee Award of the Central Council Research and to the Government of India, and Sir Devaprashanna Sharbadekari Gold Medal, the most prestigious medal of Calcutta University, and honored by the Indian Chemical Society in their Platinum Jubilee celebration in promoting the standard of organic chemistry research in India. Here you find receiving the P.C. Chandra Puraskar of the P.C. Chandra Group for the elder member of the group handing over to her. She was a founder fellow of the Academy of Science and Technology, West Bengal. She was awarded the Rothindra Puraskar of Vishwa Bharati and honored by the West Bengal Academy of Science and Technology and awarded the Academy Medal. In 2006, her health was already failing. So and I forgot to mention, she was awarded the DSc honoris causa of the universities of Burdwan, Kolkata, Vidyasagar, and Banaras Hindu University. In 2006, her health was failing, so she could not travel to Vidyasagar University to get the DSc honoris causa award. The then governor of West Bengal, who was chancellor of Vidyasagar University, Honorable C. Gopal Krishna Gandhi, was gracious enough to visit her at her home at Kakurgachi, Maniktala, and personally hand over this award to her. In 2006, a few weeks before, she went to hospital never to return again. She was given the Honored Citizen of Calcutta Award by the first citizen of Calcutta, the then Mayor, Honorable Sipika Shanjan Bhattacharya, in 2006. This is one of Professor Chatterjee always felt a person, whether a scientist or a literature, should not stay in his her ivory tower. He or she had commitments to the society. This is one of her social commitments. She was deeply involved in the popularization of science through Bengali language and was closely associated with Professor Shantananath Bose, FRS, who established the Bangyo Bigyan Porishad. On the demise of Professor Bose, she took up the helm of the Porishad as its second president and helped in the construction of the building of the Porishad and also obtained funds from the West Bengal government for experimental science, the Hate Kolome Bibhag, for young girls and boys. She was also active for the education and upliftment of women and was the president of the Nadi Shikha Mandir School for several years. Now coming to the Indian Science Congress session. She was the first woman general president of the Indian Science Congress Association. Subsequently, there were 4 other women scientists as general presidents, but it is too little a number considering that we are going to celebrate the 108th session of the Indian Science Congress this year. The first Indian Science Congress session was held in Calcutta. Mukherjee as general president of the Science Congress was held at the current in 1947 and Jawaharlal Nehru as general president spoke at the nation. 1937 was held in 2013 and Dr. Monmouth spoke on science for the Here, next slide. Here you find Professor Dr. Asima Chatterjee delivering the presidential address. And as was the custom, coming down from the time of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, the Science Congress was also inaugurated by the Prime Minister of India, and she was very fortunate to have a lady Prime Minister, late Mrs. Indira Gandhi, whom you can see on the dais. Highlights of Professor Chatterjee's presidential address. Science and technology in India, present and future. Science and technology vis-a-vis our problems. She felt that the universities were the barometers for measuring the development of science and technology in the country. And so university training in both teaching and research should receive top national priority. In a developing country, emphasis must be placed on applied research, and we must find avenues for employment of science graduates. And even in 1975, she foresaw there would be a shortage of power, and so she advocated in her address for the development of alternative sources of energy. She said scientists had a social responsibility because most of the funds for research is provided by the government from taxpayers' money. Hence, it was to access to the remedial measures must be taken if the achievements fell short. She felt that utilization of natural resources must be taken and research directly oriented towards the discovery and development of new drugs from India's vast plant materia medica. Now coming to her research, Professor Asima Chatterjee made seminal contributions to national product chemistry working on Indian medicinal plants. Her most noted contributions were in the field of natural products, particularly alkaloids, and especially her first love was indole alkaloids. Next slide, please. 59 PhD students carried out their doctorate thesis under her and 3 DSc students. She published 355 research papers and 20 review articles. When she passed away, there were still a few research publications to be completed. I've mentioned a few of the 62 doctorals of her doctoral students who established their own school of research in the departments of chemistry, Calcutta University, Jadavpur, Burdwan, Kolani, Vishwa Bharati University, and North Bengal University, and also the Krishna Vishwavidyalaya. Now, many students went institutes like Indian Institute of Technology, Hyderabad, the Indian Institute of Chemical Biology, Bosch Institute, the DHT-sponsored Institute of Drug Development at Guwahati, and other institutes, and also the departments of chemistry at Banaras Hindu University. Her students also joined under CCRS, what is known today as the Central Ayurvedic Research Institutes in Calcutta, Tarikhet Almora, in Jamshedpur, and in Chennai. Professor Chatterjee initiated chemical investigation of alkaloids. Next slide. And she started work on Rahulja canesins. She investigated the chemistry of almost all principal types of indole alkaloids known today. Her contributions with regard to the structure and stereochemistry of in Sarfaji, which was the first Genesis the molecule which is the precursor of 20 alkaloids isolated from the plant. She carried out synthetic studies on a number of complex indole alkaloids, alkaloids and steroid alkaloids, but indole alkaloids was the first love. Next slide, please. She studied the action of various Lewis acids on phenylated coumarins, and which had very unusual substitution patterns, and therefore this synthetic route was more useful as such coumarins could not be synthesized by conventional means. She opened up a new chapter in indole chemistry by investigating the Lewis acid catalyzed reactions of indoles. She investigated mechanism of acid catalyzed hydrogen fission, which has been quoted in the organic textbook by L. Finar, volume 2. And she also studied use of reagents in organic synthesis. At first, I will not discuss all the complex indole alkaloids which she isolated and which is in her treasure trove. But I'll just show you Rahul Sen, because this was the first alkaloid she studied in the early 1940s. Later, with her PhD student, Dr. Pakrashi, she studied the stereochemistry, structure, and stereochemistry of Rahul Sen. And in 1986-87, she carried out the total synthesis of Rahul Sen with another young PhD student. Then she carried out a lot of work on several Rahulfia species. And below you can see flexichlorine, a very complicated dimeric indole alkaloid isolated from Rahulfia reflexa. And her PhD student, Oshin Ghosh, later migrated to the United States of America. Here, next slide. Here I've shown the total synthesis of Rahul Sen. I will not take you through the complicated steps, but you can well imagine the long and complicated steps. Next slide. Which is the synthesis of the alkaloids. Next slide. She also synthesized a number of quinoline and isoquinoline alkaloids, and the PhD student involved in this work later joined Jadavpur University and became professor in the Department of Chemistry, and then he became Vice Chancellor of North Bengal University. Next slide. Next slide.
Yeah, it is there.
Now I come to the plant Razia stricta decesne. When she decided that she would do something, her determination made her do it. She from Professor University of Peshawar. And at that time, there was no direct communication between Peshawar and India. So Dr. Kausalbas sent the plant to Japan to one of Professor Chatterjee's friends, and from there, the plant was sent to Calcutta. And glyzokizine is the precursor, as you can see here, for the synthesis of all C1920 indole alkaloids. And she carried out the isolation and structure determination of glyzokizine, which is produced in the plant from tryptophan and this monoterpenoid unit. And through strictozidine, we arrive at glyzokizine. And here are the names of her two PhD scholars, Ovidit Banerje and Priolal Mojumdar, who later joined the Department of Chemistry, Calcutta University. She later, I've mentioned three of the other indole alkaloids which were isolated from Razia stricta decesne, and her PhD students, N. Aditya Chaudhary became head of the Department of Chemistry, Bidhan Chandra Krishi Vishwavidyalaya. Dr. Gauranga Ganguly migrated to USA, and Dr. B.C. Das was head of the mass spectro division of CNRS France. Now I come, next slide. I come to this part which you must be familiar with as sclerosis, which is known as pathine. The plant growing in the University College of Science, Nanitu Acharya PC Chandra campus. And here are the 7 leaves, Shaptaporni, which I understand is given during the convocation at Vishwabharati. Now I've selected a few of the compounds isolated and studied by Professor Chatterjee from Alstonia sclerosis. I'd just like to mention echitamine, because at that time, 3 schools were working on this plant. Dr. Asima Chatterjee at Calcutta University, Sir Robert Robinson, Nobel laureate in the University of Cambridge, and Dr. Conroy in England. And remember, at that time, Dr. Asima Chatterjee had only a Carl Zeiss UV spectrophotometer, manually handled, and no other instrument. But her knowledge of organic chemistry, her intuition, and her ability to design degradative experiments kept her afloat and in competition with the other scientists on indole chemistry. And she was the first to show that echitamine contained a 5-membered ring and not a 6-membered ring as proposed by Sir Robert Robinson and Dr. Conroy. The final answer to this structure was provided by Professor Robertson, University of Cambridge. Now I come to this very intricate molecule, norelin. And because it gave us so much difficulty in its structure, and this structure was the most unusual structure and was never known among indole alkaloids. And recently, a few reports have appeared from universities in China where they have isolated derivatives of norelin. She also left her mark on polyphenolics. I've shown 2 coumarins with interesting substitution patterns. But I must mention luvangatin because this was the first coumarin which she studied on PSC. At that time, remember, the only thing available to her was her intuition to develop degradative studies and paper chromatography. And this is another lignan isolated from Jatropha gossypifolia with her PhD student. Professor Chatterjee also left her mark in the study of triterpenoids. Next slide. And here you find all a few of the many complex triterpenoids isolated by her elucidation. She also carried out a number of rearrangements of terpenoids and did circumstantial proof being generated. Calculated. Famous chemists, there is no evidence to prove that an incident carbonyl could be generated during the biogenesis of. Now I come to another you. Being a hardcore organic chemist who is interested in natural products, in organic synthesis, development of reagents, in indole chemistry, how was it that she became interested in traditional medicine? Well, she has given the answer herself in an interview which was published in Deshpotrika in Bengali. She had said that when she was a young child, her father used to take her to their village home and and on from this statement was near Tarikeshwar, her father allopathic used to different plants, medicinal plants in the way could be used and were being used in traditional medicine. She has said, since I fell in love with nature. And this possibly is not true with her. So when she began carrying out independent research, she would establish an institute where research would be carried out on Indian plant Material Medica, and a hospital established especially for the poor of West Bengal. She was founder of the Research Institute Development for Indian Medicine Plants, which is today known as Central Ayurveda Research Institute and is situated at Sector 5, Kolkata. Here you can find the gateway leading to the institute, and this is a photograph which they've kept in the chemistry department. Next slide. The establishment of the Central Ayurvedic Research Institute was only possible because of the help she received. She received from the then, okay, I'll say, she received from the then Chief Minister of West Bengal, Honorable Mr. Jyoti Basu. She visited him because the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare had said that they would not be able to give her land. But if she got the land, they would give the development, the grant for building and also for procuring instruments. So, after listening to her, Chief Minister Jyoti Basu donated with just a mere registration fee of ₹1 the land to her, 10 acres of land. And the Regional Research Institute was built and government grant to the public work. It has 140 personnel. The institute has departments of chemistry where validation of the Ayurvedic drugs are carried out. It has a department of pharmacology where animal experiments are carried out, pharmacognosy where authentication of a particular plant is carried out to confirm that there would be no spurious plants involved in the preparation of the drugs, and a new biochemistry department, and a hospital with free 20-bed facilities and free outdoor patients department. Now constructing an 8-story building on this 10 acres of land, the funding coming from the Central Ministry. Here, next slide. That 150th anniversary was celebrated at Cary, Central Ayurveda, and these ended like the land. That's the next slide. It's poretta. She was the inspiration behind the development of 2 Ayurvedic combination drugs, Ayurvedic drug, which is known as Ayurveda, which is known as the science of life, actually involves in building up our immune system so that we do not fall a prey to diseases. Well, of course, if the situation becomes critical, we have to turn to allopathic drugs. She was the inspiration behind the development of two Ayurvedic combination drugs, a highly successful rehabilitation drug in the treatment of epilepsy and behavioral epileptic disorders from the water fund, Marsilia minuta, which we know as Shushni, and Nardrostatis dotamanshi. Next slide. And again, she developed Ayush 64, the highly potent anti-malarial drug, which is being used now when pandemic started as an adjunct to standard care in mild to moderate COVID-19 after exhaustive experiments were carried out by two CSR laboratories at Lucknow and Chennai. And this is actually a combination of four plants, Chireta, Chhatin, Kuberokshi, and Kotuki. And before these, and Ayush 64 is given free at all the institutes and hospitals under CACRAS. And I was pleasantly surprised to find that it's also being sold across the counter in Kolkata in the pharmacy shops. And before Ayush 56 and Ayush 64 were introduced, exhaustive experimentations were carried out by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare in their different departments and hospitals. And in case of the testing of the anti-malarial drug, villages in Haryana were chosen where there was an epidemic of malaria. Professor Chatterjee started work on an anti-psoriasis drug using Pongamia pinnata as the main constituent in March 2006. But unfortunately, before she could complete this work, she passed away in November 2006. And this is, the lower plant is Pongamia pinnata, which is locally known as Karanjia. Books written. At the request of Professor Shotendranath Bose, FRS, Professor Chatterjee wrote in Bengali, Madhyamik Rasayan Vidya, a book in chemistry for class 10 students, because class 10 was then newly introduced. And it was published by Bongyo Bigyan Porishad. As principal editor and author, she edited and wrote in Bengali Bharater Bonoshodi on Indian medicinal plants in 6 volumes published by Calcutta University. Originally, this book was published in 2 volumes by late Dr. K.P. Bishwas, who was then curator of the Botanical Gardens in Shibpur, Howrah. But due to his failing health, he requested the authorities of Calcutta University for approaching Professor Chatterjee for re-editing and publishing this book. Later, as principal editor and author, she compiled in English the Treatise on Indian Medicinal Plants in 6 volumes, published by NISCARE, publication wing of the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, Government of India. And here you find one of the 6 volumes I've shown. This is another of her many social commitments, and I would like to take you back to the year 1968. The patent system in India in 1968 followed the Patent Acts of 1911, designed by the British rulers in their own interest. The ambiguities and deficiencies were fully exploited by the foreign-owned pharmaceutical companies, which were known as transnational corporations, and which were detrimental for the Indian companies. Bengal Chemical and Pharmaceutical Works Limited, a dream project of Acharya Prafulla Chandra Ray, who was known as the father of modern pharmaceutical industry in India, was involved in a historic legal battle with Hesh Pharmaceutical Company Limited over infringement of a patent right involving a sulfonamide derivative. In the year 1968, Professor Chatterjee was the principal witness for the Indian company, their lawyers being late barrister Rothindev and late barrister Somnath Chatterjee, was also a former speaker of the Lok Sabha. The multinational company had late Professor Dukharan Chakraborty, who was then head, and Sir Rashbihari Ghosh, Professor of Chemistry, Calcutta University, and as their principal witness. And they brought in lawyers from abroad, in patent lawyers, especially including Queen Elizabeth's Privy Council. And it was very interesting to find that two professors of chemistry department in two opposite camps. Professor Chatterjee's profound knowledge of organic chemistry, her conviction and courage helped Bengal Chemical and Pharmaceutical Works in winning this hard-fought legal battle, which had continued for days at the Calcutta High Court. The case was historical in several ways. The Bombay High Court, in an earlier case, gave the verdict just opposite to the Calcutta High Court. So the multinational company, Hesh Pharmaceutical Works Limited, thought then law of 1911 after this historic legal battle. This and if Bengal Chemical and Pharmaceutical Works had lost the case, they would have to go into liquidation because of the astronomical amount of legal suit sought by the Indian companies. This had been written in detail by Sri Debojyoti Chattopadhyay, who is now head of the Purulia Science Center, which is under the National Council of the Science Museum, and published in the journal Science and Culture. Of her many social commitments, and I'd just like to mention one and the last one. Professor Chatterjee was responsible for the creation of the Housewives Research Associateship by the University Grants Commission. While a member of the Rajya Sabha, she mentioned to late Mrs. Indira Gandhi that many ladies had to give up, who had obtained their PhD degree, had to give up their career after marriage or childbirth. So, if a housewife research association could be created for them with limited working hours, then they could come back to the mainstream and their potential would not be lost to the nation and would be beneficial for our country. Mrs. Indira Gandhi readily agreed, but before UGC could implement this associateship, she had passed away under tragic circumstances. The first housewife research associate of Calcutta University was Dr. Mrs. Purnima Udhikari. She was lecturer in North Bengal Medical College, but she had to resign and give up her career after childbirth because her husband, late Mr. Nishit Udhikari, was an advocate at the Calcutta High Court. Later, after a gap of many years, she joined as Housewife Research Associate. Professor Chatterjee's sincere devotion to duty, hard work, and unquenched thirst for knowledge. A true karma yogi as she was, she believed in carrying out her duties and responsibilities without aspiring for any rewards. She was passionately devoted to the ideals of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa Deva, Holy Mother Sharada, and had ardent faith in the philosophy of Swami Vivekananda. It was possibly this selfless devotion which refrained her from accepting any royalties for the two drugs developed for the government of India, for the books written, or for accepting any fees from Bengal Chemical and Pharmaceutical Works Limited for the still well-known legal battle of 1968 at the Calcutta High Court. Her life was a unique example of commitment and harmony between the professional and private life. She students and acquaintances. A very good human being steeped in Indian culture, and in her one could find the union of ancient and modern tradition and of rural and city life. Her students reverentially called her master, teacher. Her younger contemporaries in the department and all clerical staff, Didi, elder sister, and others whom we refer today as multitasking staff. Mother, was a true mother to them, and whenever they approached her, she tried to help them to the best of her ability. Late Dr. Madhuri Ben Shah, former chairperson, University Grants Commission, wrote to her daughter, her selfless devotion inspires and gives strength to people like me, and renews my faith and the goodness of human nature. In the one-day seminar held in honor of this alumnus, extraordinaire as they called her, the authorities of Scottish Church College and members of their chemistry department paid an elegant tribute to her in a seminar which they had held in their honor. It is not about next slide. It is not about achieving something. It is about inspiring millions to do the same. This lecture, and in conclusion, I should like to thank my husband, Professor Dr. Ovidit Banerjee. Without his help, this lecture would have been impossible. He spent hours on the computer, searching through the internet, going through Google search, getting information on Professor Chatterjee, information we did not know at all, for example, the postage stamp, etc. And he made all the sequencing. He decided which pictures should be shown. So I should thank you once again, and I should also thank you and you for helping me to present this lecture, and also those in the audience for your patient hearing and those who are online. Thank you.
Asima ji for her contributions to the Indian science, which are inspiring young minds even today. Thanks to Professor Banerje for narrating us the achievements of
Can I answer that? Can I answer that?
Yes, yes, you can use this.
Thank you, Dr. Prashad, and I'm very happy you were listening to this lecture from Hyderabad.
Thank you, madam. Thank you so much.
Dr. Prashad, thank you so much for being online. And I should like to introduce to everybody as a former director of Central Ayurveda Research Institute in Kolkata.
Thank you so much. Thank you, madam. And thank you, Avid sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, organizers.
Any other questions from anybody? You can please speak up. Sorry, we have lost the connection from one of the machines. Ma'am is in her mobile. So please feel free to speak up.
Julie, hello, Julie.
Hello.
Dulal.
Hello, Julie.
Hello, sir.
Speech.
Hello,
Excellent
sir.
speech, but such a great life.
Thank you so much, sir.
Such a great
Hello.
life, and time is too short to cover everything. I can tell you that as human being, our master was super. And I like to point out that Professor Asima Chatterjee as a human being, she's great, and she always thought about humanity. That is my observation. So
Thank
please
you,
note
sir.
this point.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Can I ask you a question, Dr. Banerjee? This is
Yes,
Dr.
please.
Malik calling from USA.
Yes, I can
Can I?
recognize you.
Okay.
Yes, please do
My
ask.
question is scientific. Um, what was the method that Mrs. Chatterjee used to know the absolute configuration of the terminal two ring present in these alkaloids?
Well, I think she used degradation studies to standard molecules and also NMR spectroscopy. Bimol Babu. Bimol Babu.
It is not question by request. Thank you, Professor Banerjee. It's a mesmerizing lecture. Okay, while listening all those things about the Professor Chatterjee, it's a fairy tale. More than 100 years ago, the contribution she has made throughout the indoor chemistry and the Ayurvedic medicine, etc. It is so inspiring for all the lady and the young generation students till today. I request Sudeshna to upload the whole thing in our website so that more and more students, young people can go through this thing. At least they get inspiration from Professor Asima Chatterjee. Thank you very much,
The
Madam, and
inspiration I
also
think
Professor
was
Banerjee, who has made this all those slides and etc. Everything. Okay. Okay. Yeah, we are very much honored to listen this thing.
it's a
Thank you very
pleasure.
much.
And her inspiration was her mother. Because her mother was married at the young age of 8. Yes, she did not have formal education. But she was determined because she did not have formal education, her daughter would have formal education. And she always fought for her daughter's right and never made any distinction between son and daughter.
Pre-independent struggle.
Of course.
Nowadays we are getting so much of facilities, but we are complaining every time we are not getting this, not getting this. But after listening this thing and so much of achievement and the social contribution, should be very much. We should rethink the way we need to contribute for the society.
For example, I'll tell you in the Department of Chemistry, Calcutta University at present, there is only one teacher in organic chemistry, lady, one teacher in analytical chemistry, one teacher in inorganic, and one teacher in physical. All other are male teachers. So you can imagine. Still, I don't know, people. Ladies don't come forward.
Thank you, Iti ma'am, and for the audience, as ma'am requested, for all our Day to Dream episodes, we do have the recording available in the IEEE Kolkata section YouTube channel, and you can search it in Google. You will get, whenever you search with Dare to Dream, we have 5 episodes on Dr. Bibha Chaudhary, on Dr. Purnima Sinha, on Miss Ila Mojumdar, on Dr. Rajeshwari Chatterjee, and Dr. Parvati Dev. They are all into our channel, and our one of the purposes, of course, as ma'am said, is also archival and to distribute the recordings and to have more of the new generation also see and learn that how difficult it was to self motivate once, and how the ecosystem helped even 100 years or 50 years back to do something which is even difficult today. So
It's not recording, also the PPT, so that we
So
can
the
get
recording, in the screen ma'am, we have all the information also. Yes. The whole recording is there. Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead. Sushmita, you take that mobile, so the audience will be able to see you.
It's a question from as a woman in STEM. And it's both to honor Reverend about Professor Asima Chatterjee, and of course, you also have been such a successful person in profession. But we as women have both the home front and the work front to manage.
Sure.
And so some tips to us and the younger generation, inspiring that, the achievements, the inspiration obviously has been there. And I'm sure it's selfless hours, of dedication. But still, being there and pursuing your dream, etc. So if you could just say a few words, how to manage both sides.
But I never missed her as a mother, because from school, Loreto House, I used to come to Calcutta University, stay with her, and then we used to return home to Bengal Engineering College together. And on Thursdays, we had holidays. My father was always there because it was a residential college. And whenever she went abroad, she was very particular that I received a letter each week from her so that I would not feel lonely and miserable. And also she made it a point where after she reached home to cook one dish for my father every night, every day. So, it was sort of her family life, she never sort of gave up her family. And as I said, she was a very good daughter also. She used to visit her mother regularly. She was a very good, I should say, mother-in-law, grandmother. And so she fulfilled all her duties. It was something like a magician. But no one could say that she did not do a particular duty. That was no. And she had another gift. Those students who bunk practical classes during the normal hours, she used to, after 6, she used to go to the canteen, bring them along, make them do their practical. As a result, some days we used to reach home at 10 p.m. So, it was something, everybody sort of loved her. And another person was her husband, who stood beside her solid as a rock. And whenever she achieved something, one would think that he had achieved it. Because after he passed away, then the people of Bengal, Chemistry Department of Bengal Engineering College used to say that whenever his wife got an award or a recognition, he used to give us a great feast. But we at home didn't know it. So he was as a solid rock, and he never complained that you are not doing this or doing that. He never did. And moreover, when she was used to return home, he and the then principal, late Otul Chandra Ray, decided that there was one teacher in chemistry department who didn't have a PhD degree, and they forced her every Sunday, and even after she returned from the university, to go and help him in his work and get his PhD degree. So, and he, late Dr. Shanti Ranjan Bhattacharya, who became professor and later retired from Presidency College. So I never missed her. My father never missed her. My grandparents never missed her. Of course, Ovidio would say how she was as a mother-in-law. So that's up to him.
Sir, you should say something now.
As a student also.
No, he's already there. He's on camera. So.
My first impressions were as a student in first year MSc. So she was a wonderful lecturer, and we were very impressed, naturally. And then she used to come to the lab and show us all the experiments. Many of the juniors did not. She did. She was a professor. And then I decided to go on for organic chemistry, and our practical lab, organic chemistry lab, was next to her room. So quite a number of times we used to go to her room and work with her. And then I joined on 1st May. So when I went there and said, I'll work with you, madam, Professor Talapathu was sitting there. He said, you come and work with me. It was very amusing case. And then things went on. And then we went to, I joined the department, then we went to England. And she had a lot of foreigners coming. Professor Pauling, at that time I met him. And went, and they used to interact very well with her and get their guidance. It was a kind of a interaction with the American and the British professors and the Indians. We had much less facilities. They gave us some facilities and we could go and work over there. We had a lot of respect for her because in spite of the very poor facilities, Calgary University was well endowed with funds. Even then, compared with any of the other universities in the UK or USA, we were absolute paupers. Still, we tried very hard. We got some professors. Like the teachings he mentioned, I still remember the day when those pale yellow crystals came out. We did not have an NMR, so we sent it somewhere else, progression. And this is a overture that we have got some it was known as a degradation product. That was one of the high points of my research. And I still have that little tube with this question.
We got our first Bakeman IR spectrophotometer in 1974.
When the NMR machine came, we were the first in the university to get an NMR. And that made we could make a gigantic leap on it. And now most of the better universities, bigger universities do have NMR. And the most important thing was that she was with all the students throughout the evening. And none of us left before she did, which means 7:38, 8:30 sometimes. So that put up a work culture among us. One thing really missed was that she was a great administrator also. And actually, walk of administration, keeping records, dealing with letters, sending the letters for fellowship. She didn't write those, these are you write. Which we could pass on to some of our students. If you look at the undergraduate college scenario, many of her and many of our students are in administrative positions, and it is all due to her. It has gone from us to our students. And someone said, everywhere we see your students as head examiners, as council members. That's the training process education learns, and this is continuing now.
And she never needed, what should I say, projection facilities or anything. Chalk, blackboard. She started the synthesis, even of, say, the complicated molecules like chlorophyll. She started this degradation into the basic components, just chalk on the blackboard. Her handwriting was nitrogen was symmetrically written. She broke down the structures again from the simple molecules. She built up heme, chlorophyll, but she never got tired and was just chalk writing on the blackboard. No other, she never needed any class notes nor any projection facilities, nothing. No, she never took any notes to the...
Everything was in her mind.
Everything was within her mind. She had a deep concentration.
Long synthesis procedures of
Thank you.
One other aspect is our association with the Science Congress. Felt that was some big speaker organized. The Indian Chemical Society, the Indian Science Association, and of course, Indian Science
আপনার খুব কষ্ট হলো এতক্ষণ বসে প্রজেকশন করা
আমি তো কিছু করি Thank you.
Know you people. You have never posted before.
Thank
Talk on Professor Chatterjee again in hybrid mode at the SM Bose Institute on 8th July. So I'll send you the links. I'll send Sushmita the links. Many of the scientists from the institute, I'm going to almost call it our institute, I was there for 5 years. They have joined. Prasad, of course. Beyond that, beyond that. Beyond that is a big name in journal publishing. He's the editor of so many journals.
Thank you, sir. And now I would one last message from the chat box from Gopanundi. Thanks, informative and excellent lecture on our beloved master. Thanks to the organizers also. And now I would invite our Vice Chair of Women in Engineering Kolkata section, Dr. Ankita Pramanik, to give the vote of thanks, and followed by followed by Shudipta. Again, she's our member from Region 10 Women in Engineering Council, and then she will felicitate ma'am. So, Ankita, over to you.
Thank you, Sudeshna Di.
You sit here, sit.
Only have with its PhD. So Professor Chatterjee's grand student. And she's speaking from Noihati.
So coming from IIST Shibpur, I will say that Professor Chatterjee is an enigma at IIST Shibpur. So it's really an honor to listen to her life and works from none other than Madam Julie Banerje over here. And Madam has shown us that Professor Asima Chatterjee is known variously as Ma. But what is unknown to many is that when I was talking to my colleagues yesterday about Professor Asima Chatterjee, they were students of Madam and they had joined the meeting online of Madam Julie Banerjee. So they told me that they had met Professor Asima Chatterjee, but when they went to meet Madam Chatterjee, someone told them that Madam is very old and you should not disturb Madam. But then they said कि नाती and special to Professor Abhijit Banerjee, who is also here today and who is the rock behind, I think, this talk, because he has also designed the PPT. And one more thing, sir has mentioned that he will be giving a talk on 8th July at Bosch Institute. At Shottenbush Bosch Institute. Sorry for the mix-up. And I would like to thank Professor Shushmita Shurkole madam, who has a childlike energy, and she was really instrumental in getting the board. Professor chair, and Shudipta Chattopadhyay madam, our past V chair, Shushant Roy, of course, because he hosted this meeting here in Jadavpur University. And I would like to thank all the committee members of IEEE Kolkata section, IEEE V Kolkata section, and of course the young volunteers, and definitely to all the people who joined online and offline, not just from India but also from abroad. So with this, we end today's session. Thank you all. Good night. Oh, one more thing. I'm sorry. Not good
Yes,
night.
we should have the online audience also. So Shudipta, come here. So we welcome Shudipta to felicitate ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you ever so much. Beautiful.
We will close the session now. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. So, good night.
Actually, when